Hey, this is Kyle Strom, the co-creator of Spread, and you're listening to Southern Fried Geekery.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man.
You guys were looking at me like I was fucking insane.
I wasn't looking at you were like insane. I was just wondering why the fuck we were talking about taupe.
That's the color I want my name on it when he organizes all of our color codes.
How did we get on color-coded taupes?
Look,
Even the cat screaming.
We're having fast conversation, Kel. I need you to keep the fuck up.
Put an asterisk on it so I know what it means.
Or an asterisk.
Or an asterisk and obolong.
Obolongs.
Obolongs. I don't speak Swedish.
Or an ampersand.
Oh,
What's a monkey got to do with this?
sad day.
Well, apparently, changing a monkey's diaper will save you from...
Well, no, let's get this poo thrown at you. We'll save you from mass genocide of the male variety.
Monkeys are weird.
Monkeys are the best.
They really are. How did we start talking about Taupe and Monkeys?
Humans are weird.
Because you have not put any of the stuff on your little outlines that you like to type up, even though they are color-coded in red. So now we decided to talk about better topics than what you had in mind.
That makes
Taupe and Monkeys.
complete sense. Can we call this Taupe and Monkeys?
You can absolutely call this Taupe and Monkeys.
Nobody's going to know why.
Do y'all want to do a Taupe and Monkeys podcast?
Fuck yeah!
Well, let's do a Taupe and Monkeys
Scrap
podcast
this
then.
entire layout that you had for us and just talk about Taupe and Monkeys. I'm down.
Let's do it. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 24 of the Southern Fried Geekery and now the Taupe and Monkeys podcast. As always, I'm one of your co-hosts, Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
I'm Craig Lance.
I'm Sean.
And I'm your token monkey mascot, Jerry.
That was impressive on the fly. Like, seriously, that was not pre-recorded.
You're welcome.
That's Jerry's 1 feat for the month. Anyway, so if you've never listened to our podcast before, welcome. If you're a long-time listener, we're glad to have you back. If you've been enjoying what you've heard before, or if you like what you hear in this episode, and you listen to us on things like iTunes, go on there and leave us a review if you don't mind. We'd greatly appreciate it. You can also check us out on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Just a simple search will let you find us. And we're kind of all over those sites doing all kinds of cool things. And we're now on YouTube because Sean is awesome. I'm going to keep promoting that because I'm really, really happy we're on there. And I'm not going to read the YouTube comments. So, going to kind of move really quickly through this first thing because we've got a lot to talk about today. It's been a heck of a week. So, we're going to start off with some nerd news. Sean, what you got, brother?
Got some news from Japan, actually. The Ichiro Oda, the creator of One Piece, has donated $8 million to the earthquake disaster relief in Japan.
That's awesome.
DC has started a new imprint called Black Label. They've released some pub dates for a few titles. Expect early October, I believe, is when they're going to start releasing them. Last Night on Earth, Batman book, and then Batman Damned are a couple of them. There's a Superman book, and they're also moving some of their other stuff into that label. So look forward to that new imprint.
So this is like DC's, what, 4th or 5th print?
It's okay. They can have as many imprints.
Yeah,
as they want.
They've been doing good. So.
They have been.
It's just their way of separating out their universes. Instead of having multiple universes, they're having imprints.
Well, and yeah, and somebody else pointed out, like, they actually, like, the Young Animal imprint's kind of done now.
It
and
is.
so they're kind of just cycling through them. It is what it is. Mark Russell's got a book coming out in that I'm really excited about. I love Mark Russell.
Anything we can do to get more Mark Russell books.
I'm about it. I want it real bad. So since we're talking about imprints and the such, there is a new publisher that kind of just announced their presence on the scene, and it's going to be called Ahoy Comics. This new publisher is put together. I mean, we're talking about Mark Russell, so might as well throw his name in another one. It's Mark Russell, Grant Morrison, Ann Nocenti, and Tom Payer, and a few more people, and they're launching it with the question of, shouldn't you want a little more from your comics? So they're going to be giving you more back matter. It's going to be kind of a comic version of a magazine, kind of like the old, if you remember the Marvel World magazines or what they were called, just kind of all-encompassing. Yeah. They're going to have a little bit of that aspect to them along with the comic.
Are they going to be magazine size or comic size?
I think they're going to be comic size. They haven't really said. I'm assuming they're going to be comic size, but it's being done by publisher Hart Seeley, and he's a comics journalist. I've read some of his stuff. I like him. He's a good guy. He works as a newspaper reporter, so he knows what he's doing. He knows the world. Yeah, really excited Always like to see young publishers come up. Always like to see new material getting thrown forward. Kind of pumped about it.
Yeah, me too.
Another comic book news. You guys may have heard me talk about a little title called Thanos a while back by Donny Cates.
Did you ever stop talking about it?
I still have not stopped talking about it. So apparently Thanos is going to be joining the Infinity Wars coming up September 5th. And guess who's going to be writing it? You're right, Donny Cates. So
You didn't let me guess.
jumping back on the horse. It's
How-
okay.
I mean, how can you have Infinity Wars anything without things?
Right.
involved, so.
So he's going to be joined by Gary Dugan and Brian Level, and it just looks like it's going to be pretty awesome. It's going to be an oversized one-shot. So
You just murdered Jerry Duggan's name.
Jerry Duggan, listen,
Jerry Duggan, if you are upset about how Jerry pronounced your name, feel free to come on this podcast and fight him about it.
I'm a Jerry. We don't spell that with a G.
I do want to say one thing about this real quick before we move on. Jerry Duggan's only done comedic type comic
Right.
books at this point, so I'm a little
Well, he got
concerned about his involvement in a Thanos book, but we'll see how it plays.
He got his start in comedy television writing.
Yeah.
And he had a long run on Deadpool. And I'm kind of that same way. I'm kind of
I'm going to give it
curious.
a wait and see.
So IDW is bringing back an old school title that longtime comics readers may remember. It's The Max.
Most of them don't.
This was a character that came out during like the Image Revolution, kind of a Hulk analog, if you will. And they're coming back. Sam Keith apparently is going to be writing it, and it's called The Max Returns.
It's pretty exciting. All I know about that series is the animated series that I watched.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, that was the thing.
The Max is just very much a 90s style character,
Yeah.
so it'll be interesting to see how he plays in today's world.
And he had a nice guest appearance in Savage Dragon in one issue.
Yeah.
He did.
Do you own that issue?
Of course, I
All
know
right.
that issue.
Good job, Sean.
I think.
You have close to a full run of Savage Dragon. at this point,
Actually,
right?
still missing a pretty good chunk, maybe
Yeah.
about 40 or 50 issues.
Awesome.
It's getting there.
So, pretty awesome movie came out this weekend. Some of you may have heard. Incredibles 2. Has anybody seen it other than me so far?
I have
think
not.
you're
So, I'm going to go ahead and say that it was worth the 14-year wait. I fucking really enjoyed it.
Oh,
And
awesome.
if you haven't seen it yet, go out and see this fucking movie. If you love the first one, you're absolutely going to love the second one.
It's also known as the Better Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
Well, and that's not even cutting anything down. It's legitimately a good Fantastic Four movie.
Yeah,
Like it
absolutely.
really is.
Yeah.
I think we may go see it tonight or tomorrow.
Yeah.
Raj is off work.
I loved it.
He may not be into comic books, but he loves animated stuff. So
Mhm.
he's been itching to see this.
Well, he likes superhero movies
Well, yeah.
and stuff. too.
They set a lot of stuff up for a third movie, but I'm not going to hold my breath on that. I'm just going to trust
14
that we're
years
going to get it.
we'll,
Yeah.
we'll celebrate my retirement by going and seeing
Yeah.
I mean,
Incredible.
Craig T. Nelson may not be alive 14 years from now. but-
I hope so. That's going to be sad. Staying with some comic book news, a series that I really, really, really loved, and it's fitting because it's Pride Month. Iceman is coming back. Marvel decided they weren't done with it, and it's returning. And this is a series that I really, really love. Now, it did not do so good as far as the floppy sales go. This is a story focusing on the older Iceman after he's come out. It's written by a man named Stephen Grace. I'm not sure. I don't have it in front of me who's doing the art on the book, if it's the original artist or not, but really, really fun story. And one of our listeners jumped on our Facebook page and he was like, but why if it didn't sell so good? And here's the thing, it did. And not a lot of people realize that because we focus so much on single issue sales in comics. Iceman's hit the New York Times bestseller. It's gotten critical acclaim. It's actually made a lot of money for Marvel, so it makes sense. It's just doing better as a trade paperback than it did as floppies. So love this book. You know, as a gay dude, it makes me happy to see other gay dudes in comics. Really, really fun series. It's made me care about Iceman, which is something I never said before. And it's been a really, really cool focus for him. So I'm excited about that.
Hashtag my Iceman.
Hashtag my Iceman. Hashtag Ice Ice Baby.
So, in other comic book news, we've all been kind of guessing for a minute what's going to launch the DC Fresh Start. Is it the new Flash Wars going on? Is it, going to spin out of Metal? What was going to launch this? They've been talking about it for a minute. Well, it looks like there's going to be a new Crisis event, and it's DC's Next Crisis. And Tom King, who's currently just tearing it up on Batman and Miracle Man, had a fantastic run on Vision.
Yeah.
Along with artist Clayman, are going to bring us the DC's Next Crisis, which...
So I was reading a little bit about this the other day, and everybody is kind of thinking this is a big Crisis event because of the name, obviously.
Right.
The book is called Heroes in Crisis.
Yeah.
And Tom King's connection with, Tom King was in, I think he was a CIA agent or an FBI agent, I'm not sure which. He was definitely in the government. He's been to Afghanistan and all that stuff. His book, Sheriff of Babylon, is amazing. Like, I kind of wonder if it's not an OGN dealing with, like, post-traumatic stress disorder.
I know that he's talked about the PTSD being a part of this, and heroes having to deal with the PTSD in their lives, I mean, and if you think about it, there's no bigger argument for that than Batman.
Oh, right. Yeah,
Batman is the, epitome of somebody dealing with PTSD.
Or Kite Man.
Hell yeah.
So, I'm really, again, we don't have a whole lot of information yet. We don't know if it's going to be an OGN or if it's going to be a crisis event or whatever, but I'm feeling like it's going to be an event that's going to lead to a fresh start.
I think it could be both, and knowing Tom King's writing could absolutely be both.
I mean, there's so many things going on in DC right now, and we all know that the fresh start's coming, so it's going to come out of one of these things.
Yeah, right. Just kind of figuring out where it's popping out. It's like whack-a-mole.
Yep, exactly.
With comic books.
A little other bit of news taken to the movie front. A team up no one, I can say, saw coming. Looks like John Cena and Jackie Chan are going to team up in a movie. Yeah, you can't see John Cena coming out. You're right, Craig. You can't see as Craig was doing the You Can't See Me from John Cena, which makes me so proud of Craig. But
damn.
Right now, the movie is either tentatively titled or it is going to be titled Project X. I love Jackie Chan. We haven't really gotten into my love of Kung Fu movies. Maybe one of these days. But
we should absolutely do a Kung Fu special or a martial arts special.
I could talk all damn day. I don't
Somebody
need any of y'all here.
Text and I'll put them on the list.
But I'm curious. I'm interested as a wrestling fan and a Kung Fu movie fan. I'm curious to see what they're going to make of this.
Let's do it. All right. So one of the biggest things that happened this week, huge moves in the DC executive side of things. Jeff Johns, the legend Jeff Johns, stepped down from his position as president and chief creative officer of DC Entertainment. And he stepped into an executive writer-producer deal with Warner Brothers in DC. He's launching his own production studio called Mad Ghost Productions. Under that, he's going to be able to produce film, television, and comics. I know he's already announced he's writing the script for the new Green Lantern Corps movie. It's going to feature Hal and John. My brain completely shut off, and I'm trying to forget who stepped into that role that he was in. It's
Jim Lee.
Jim Lee. Thank you. Sorry. Like I said, my brain,
the
I
legend
haven't had
Jim Lee.
nearly enough coffee.
Now, there's a couple of things about this that are both fantastic and a little bit scary.
Right.
Jeff Johns has been in charge of the creative process at DC for a long time, going back to pre-New 52. Had some great runs on some books that we've all loved. DC's been fantastic, in my opinion, under his leadership, so it's going to be, there's a little bit of Jim Lee's a fantastic creator. We don't really know how he's going to do in this kind of executive role yet. I have faith that he'll do fine, but we don't know.
I think he'll be better as an executive than he will be as a ground level artist because
he can't get his work out.
I was going to say he can't. He's an amazing artist, but anytime you get a Jim Lee book now, I don't know why they keep trying to put him on there. It ends up being late.
Yeah,
because he can't produce on a regular basis because he's too busy. Johns can't.
The other thing about this is it sounds like that with him taking over Warner Brothers' direction on the DC stuff, maybe we'll have a cohesive DC universe, whether TV and movies, and if they want to bring a fresh start somewhere, they really need to do it to their DC universe.
Yeah, they do.
So I'm looking forward to that. I'm a little apprehensive about the Green Lantern movie just because he was involved in the old one quite a bit.
Yeah, he was a co-producer in the last one, but this one he's an actual producer and a writer.
So I'm hoping that he can really nail this down and give us the Green Lantern we know, love, and deserve.
Mm-hmm. I mean, fortunately, Deadpool killed that version of Green Lantern. So I see it.
Yeah. So in some podcasting news, a lot of you know that Sean and I are really big into the Adventure Zone. Well, it turns out that they are teaming up with a mysterious package company who I have I've never used them before or anything, but they essentially send you correspondence and a lot of little items and stuff to give you clues to solve mysteries and stuff like that, and then you write back to them and get into this. Well, anyway, they have this Tacos Correspondent School of Wizardry, Cantrips, and Other Magics. And I actually decided that I was going to give it a shot. They talked about it on their show at once, and they seemed really excited, so I figured that we should be excited too. So the cool thing about that is, since I ordered it and we have a YouTube channel now, if we can figure it all out and have some decent video, we're going to actually try to do an unboxing, and with a couple of roommates of mine, because they're really excited about it too. We all kind of chipped in, and so we're looking forward to doing that, and hopefully we can get it out there so you guys can see.
So real quick, just in case people don't know, what is the Adventure Zone?
The Adventure Zone is done by the McElroy brothers and their father. It's they do a podcast, or actual play podcast. They started off D&D. Now they're actually going into a game called Monster of the Week. And it's one of the brothers is basically their GM, and the other two brothers and the dad are the players. And it's a comedy podcast, hilarious. Highly recommend it. Go check it out immediately, and be looking forward for maybe an unboxing video from us on our YouTube channel.
This will be our first foray into an actual video production, so we want to put out, at least we want to let everyone know about the product and Adventure Zone podcast. Like I said, tentatively, we are planning on putting up a video. Hopefully, we don't mess it up too much, and we won't be able
I've
to
got
share
faith
it.
in you guys. It's going to be fun. I'm excited to see what you guys unbox. Hey, speaking of other podcasts, we have friends that do podcasts, and here is one of them telling you why you should listen to them.
Hi, y'all. I'm Tanya.
And I'm Lee.
We are co-hosts of the I Want to Believe podcast.
Join us for new episodes every Sunday night where we discuss all things paranormal and unsolved.
If you love all things spooky or just want to listen to two geeks talk about ghosts, this is the podcast for you.
You can find us on Audioboom,
iTunes,
Google Play,
Stitcher, and more.
Stay spooky!
All right, so yeah, go listen to I Want to Believe podcast. Speaking of which, hey, Jerry.
Yeah, and in other news on that front, if you haven't listened to their podcast, I know you've heard us at least mention them. You know that Tanya is Craig's daughter, and with her friend Lee, they put on an awesome podcast, just talking about the weird and unexplained. I'm a huge fan of it. I really love it. I was talking to Tanya a week or so ago, and she had mentioned that they're going to be doing a subject that I'm kind of familiar with. So I decided to write a letter into them, and they're actually going to be reading it on their channel this week. So
Awesome.
If you want to find out what the subject was and what my creepy, spooky story was, go check it out. Definitely check out their podcast. It's been really great stuff. They work really hard on it, and it's excellent.
It's a lot of fun.
I love it a lot.
It's a lot of fun. All right, so I actually want to talk about something that's unscripted real quick, just because it's something major in the news. As we all know, I'm going there.
It's Caleb Rants.
Well, it's not really a rant. It's kind of a rant, but not really. So unless you've been living under a rock, we've all heard about the allegations that have came out by against Chris Hardwick by a former girlfriend, saying that he abused and in many ways abused her. And he is facing repercussions over that. I don't want to necessarily talk about whether I think that whether or not he did it or didn't do it. I have no proof. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not in the case. The only thing I get is the same thing everybody else gets, which is the news. What I do want to say is that I'm a little disappointed, yet again, in fandom as a whole, because when you go on anything and you read this, inevitably what you're going to see is people launching into a giant diatribe about whether or not Hardwick is a real nerd or a fake nerd, or whether or not, none of that has anything to do with whether or not he did or did not commit these assaults that have been alleged against him. His credibility as a geek has zero things to do with that. And if that is where your mind goes when something like this comes out, you need to reevaluate some things in your life, because you're in the wrong mental space. Also, people who are at a rush to defend or condemn in any way when you don't have the facts, not a good thing to do. But regardless, don't get on anything and start diverging from what the focus of this should be by trying to figure out whether or not somebody is a real nerd, quote unquote. What does that even mean? Whether or not is his job has nothing to do with it. So when these allegations come out, I personally think that they should be taken seriously. I think that they should be believed, and that the investigation should be launched. I think that they should be investigated thoroughly, and the truth will come out of there.
When these allegations have come out against some other people and it's proven to be false, George Takei comes to mind.
Yeah.
George Takei handled it, in my opinion, perfectly as somebody that was being accused. He never came out and discredited the person that was accusing him. He said, listen, we have to listen to these people. We have to hear what they have to say. He goes, It doesn't sound like something that I would have done. It sounds completely out of my character. I don't recall these events ever happening, but we still have to listen. And that's the reality of it. We have to listen. What we choose to do with it, maybe we rush into some things, maybe we don't. But again, gatekeeping, the nerddom, it has nothing to do with whether he's a nerd or not. It has everything to do with who he is as a human being. And that's all that should be about.
Pretty much, yeah. And I got frustrated because, this is the time to have that conversation. This is the time to have a conversation about sexual assault. It is the time to have a conversation about sexual abuse or relationship abuse. It's not the time, like you said, to be jumping in and trying to have a conversation about somebody's credibility in whatever pop culture thing that you happen to like. It's just stupid.
Right.
So, okay. That's my little mini Lance rants.
Lance rants.
We need that jingle.
We got to come up with a jingle for that. All right. We rushed through the news and my little rant because we're going to be talking about some trade paperbacks today. A while back, we did an episode where we got together and we each talked about some collected editions or just some stories that we really, really like that you can go buy that come together in one bigger volume. And there's a ton of them out there. You go to any comic book store, you peruse Amazon or Barnes & Noble, you can find these things. So we wanted to get together and tell you about some stuff that we've read recently that we really enjoy and we want to highly recommend.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to kick it off. The trade paperback I chose was Preacher. Many of you might be familiar with the comic or at least the TV show, which is the other reason I kind of chose to talk about this one because we got the new season coming up. But I want to talk about Preacher. It was printed by Vertigo Comics. Back in 1995 and ran all the way to 2000. Written by Garth Ennis, art by the late Steve Dillon, covers were painted beautifully by Glenn Fabry, and it's just an amazing, controversial road. We'll get into that in a second. That's an amazing story about finding yourself, getting answers to the questions in life, and just an amazing road trip story. That will take you from everywhere from the backwoods of Texas to, where did they go to?
The Vatican.
I said, what, the Vatican?
the heaven.
The
Vatican.
Briefly. They had a pit stop in heaven, lost an eyeball, and we'll get into that. But potential spoilers for the TV show, by the way, because we are just going to talk about in whole. The trades are easily available. They've been reprinted many times. It's still something you can get. It's a story I absolutely love. But the main characters are Jesse Custer, Tulip O'Hare, and, of course, the Irish Vampire Castle. It's the story of Jesse Custer. He is a alcoholic priest for a church in a small Texas town. It opens up with him just in a bar mouthing off and getting his ass kicked and kicking ass. To which the entire town folk heard about his drunken rant in a bar that got into that fight. So everyone in town showed up at church that morning. And if you watch the TV series, you're going to diverges a little bit from what they did on there. Where he's even monologuing, to the best of my memory, of just like, everyone wants to come see what the crazy priest is going to do. Is he going to spit hellfire and brimstone, or is he going to jerk off on the Bible? They all want to see what he's going to do. I believe that is line for line. And what instead happens, he gets in there, and his sermon is about forgiveness, which I just absolutely love. But before he can even get in there, a sudden burst of light busts through the church, enters into his soul, and blasts that church all to hell. And if that doesn't give you an idea of what you're in for, I don't know what else might. But it's an amazing story. It's a long, eight trades,
volumes. Yeah.
8 trades for the entire series, 8 or 9. Like I said, you get into the amazingly dysfunctional relationship between him and Tulip, his best friend, and at times in the story, his worst enemy in Cassidy. It's an amazing very human story for something that goes way beyond the normal human happenings in life, from vampires, as we mentioned, Cassidy the Irish Vampire, to the Vatican with their own an old separate sect of the church with the descendant of Jesus in there. To just Western story with the Saint of Killer's origin and what dealing with him and just everything. We could talk all day about Preacher, I'm sure, but I want to have my little segment. I love it. It's offensive. It is dark and gritty. It is real, and the humanity and the people, the lead characters are written like real people dealing with fucked up situations. Mm-hmm. Jesse Custer's background alone is enough to you don't know why he didn't put a bullet in his head before, but he's a tough son of a bitch, and it's because of his past. I think I've already pimped it up enough. What do y'all think?
It is one of my favorite irreverent comedies of all time. I like it when people, especially when foreigners, because Garth Ennis is Irish, I love it when they play fast and loose with their, call it understanding of American Christianity and religion, because they're able to very comically point out some kind of accuracies that maybe get overlooked. And, I don't mean to be offensive to anybody who has their faith, but it's just the way that it's presented. One of my favorite parts, and it's actually in the first trade of that book, is when it describes Arseface, and how he came to be in the condition that he was in, which they've changed. I thought that was interesting. And probably because we're so far removed from that event that it wouldn't hold up as well. But in the book, kind of spoiling, this dude is so in love with Kurt Cobain and dedicated that he tries to blow his head off with a shotgun and fails in the most beautiful, fucked up manner possible.
Him and his friend are basically they're the picked on grunge music listeners that are picked on at school, and they're miserable, and they're getting drunk one night, and his friend was like, we should just fucking end it like Cobain did. This is right after the event, after him shooting himself in the real life. His friend succeeded. Arseface did not. He only ended up because his friend put it in the mouth and back of the head was gone. Arseface did the tuck the chin method and just lost the front of his face, and the best they could do to repair it is basically his entire face is caved into a nice little butthole.
It looks like a sphincter.
It really does, as Cassie pointed out. His face looks like an arse.
And then, don't forget the dude that owns the meat processing. That has a fetish for raw meat.
Which they did cover him in the TV show, but I don't think they quite hit all those notes.
They didn't, but they got Jackie Earl Haley to play.
An amazing.
My God.
But
just everything about that.
Spoilers ahead. With him trying to just do everything he did, ending with him just half dead, crawling into his meat factory to find the giant woman made of meat that he's just plowing into in his last moments of life.
Such a fantastic book.
It really is.
I like to call it Garth Ennis as fuck, because that is definitely set the tone for his, I don't know much about his past. That's the first Garth Ennis story I've ever read.
Oh, really?
I don't know if his previous stories were in this level, but to me, it's like every time I was in it, Preacher set that standard.
He usually makes it pretty sketchy.
Right.
You should read Dick sometimes. It's about aliens invading Earth.
Oh, from Avatar Press.
You like aliens invading Earth stories, Craig?
These are all aliens that are shaped like Dick.
I actually have a couple of those trades I can bring you if you want to read them.
I'll read anything Garth Ennis.
Also, if you haven't read The Boys, it's a good...
I have read a little bit of The Boys. That did come after Preacher, though, right?
It's the same... It's kind of in the same vein of a reverent comedy, except that one deals with superhero culture more than anything. But, it's definitely worth going and picking out. It's probably in most people's top 10 lists. And Steve Dillon's art.
That'll be Sean's next trade paperback talk.
Probably.
With The Boys?
Dicks.
Dicks and ooh.
Stop. Whoa.
Reverse course. Anyway, Steve Dillon's art in that book. You want to talk about that for a minute? Because Steve Dillon, unfortunately, he has passed away, but the man was a legend. He drew stuff for Marvel. He's drawn stuff for DC, and I don't want to say that this was his magnum opus, because I don't think that that's fair, but it was certainly one of his greatest achievements.
Well, yeah, because, he was in the book from top to bottom. Best to my memory, I don't think he missed an issue. There were, some little specials that had other artists kind of do, like the Santa Killers background.
Yeah.
Which was amazing.
But for the main storyline, it was him and Ennis from start to finish, and that's even rare in comics.
Well, and Garth Ennis will credit him with helping write a lot of those stories.
He did contribute even beyond the art. Amazing. If you're easily offended, especially on a religious standpoint, it's not going to be for you. I'm not going to lie. One of the things I appreciate about my wife is that she was born, raised, proud Catholic, and she loves this book. She has read all of Preacher. She will defend it. She doesn't like the show, but, whatever.
Really?
Yeah, she does. It was... You know her. She a little bit of a change. She ain't happy.
Yeah, it's got to be.
But she's not on the internet being an asshole about it.
I kind of fell off the show as well, but I really love the comic.
I've recently caught up with season 2, and they do change a lot. They update a lot, but I actually enjoy it quite a bit.
I feel the changes are in the spirit of the book and keep the feeling of it. There were parts like spoilers for season 2 if you haven't watched it yet. Skip now. The hell sequences I didn't like. But, we can maybe talk about the show another time.
Yeah, for sure.
We're focusing on trades. I didn't like what they did with Hell.
The killer's backstory.
No. That's wild.
Anyway.
An amazing book. You can find it, I'm sure, any local comic book store might still have it in stock. If not, I'm sure they can order it. And if you can't go to your local comic book shop, Amazon has it for sure. Anywhere that sells books.
Yeah.
It's still in print. It's still being reprinted. I've read the first trade so much. I need to buy a new copy of it because I think my pages are starting to fall out. I love this book, and I want to make sure everyone else knows that the TV show is based on a comic book.
Loosely based.
Loosely based.
Yeah.
So I guess that makes me next. I'm actually going to bring it down a bit because my book's actually not fantastical or anything like that. You've heard us talk about Jeff Lemire several times on the show and how he handles the human condition really well. Well, the book that I'm going over is Essex County.
Ooh.
And I really enjoyed this book. I'm usually not into like regular world slice of life type things a lot, but I love Jeff Lemire, and I heard great things about this series a few years back. So it takes place in Essex County, which is a county in Ontario. And if you don't know, Jeff Lemire is from Canada. It basically goes through the life of 3 different characters. And I think they originally released it in 3 different books with doing characters, and all of their stories eventually intertwine and everything. And it touches on a lot of like personal issues and abandonment and just people trying to chase their dreams and sometimes failing and stuff like that. And it was really like one of the later on stories that really got me because you're dealing with not to get in too much, but you're dealing with this old man who's in a home and he has a caretaker and he's got like dementia and Alzheimer's. And that really hit home for me because my grandfather had that really bad before he passed away. Kind of interesting story about that book is after I read it, really enjoyed it. I'm always trying to get my family into to more books and stuff like that. And so I took it over for my grandmother to read. And I just kind of left it there. Well, like a week later, my grandmother and grandfather came into Subway where I was working at the time, and apparently my grandfather picked it up and read it.
Nice.
And he was talking about that story, and he's like, "That's me. You know, that's like just how he depicts these types of problems and everything is like pretty much how it works." And he just really enjoyed it, and I don't know, it really hit home for that. And he passed away probably like 3 or 4 months after that. So it was just, I don't know, it was really touching. So I have like a connection with this book and him, but it's just a really, really beautiful book. Great story. As we've said in the past, you can never go wrong with Jeff Lemire. It's really great. And you can, it's always still in print. He actually won awards for this story. He won the Doug Wright Award and the Joe Shuster Award for it. Oh, and Harvey Award.
Yeah, I knew he'd
So
won a Harvey. I thought it was for this book.
Highly recommended. I know Craig's read it. I don't know if either one of you guys have read it.
It sounds like something I really do.
It's one of the few Lemire books I have not read.
Yeah.
I went to go find my copy. Excuse me. I went to go find my copy because you had asked to look at it before the show, and I just couldn't place my hands on it. Such a fantastic story. It's Lemire at the top of his game, writing about the human condition, which is what Lemire does as well as anybody on the face of the earth. And Jerry nailed it down that it's just fantastic. It's nothing spectacular as far as like, as Jerry said, fantastical stories, but it's just a great book about humans living life.
And it's actually all Lemire doing the art and the writing in it. And it's one of those great things that he does occasionally in his stuff is he'll do all of it.
Right.
Well, that's how Lemire started his career. So with books like Underwater Welder, he both
fantastic.
Yeah, he both writes and draws, and he's one of the. There are a lot of people who write and draw in comics. It's kind of a thing, but he is one of the few that he's a master of both. Normally, and I don't want to knock anybody. If anybody's listening and they're like, "Oh, that's not true," but normally, an artist is better at one than the other. They can be proficient at both. But it's very, very rare when you get an artist who is both a master of writing and a master of their art craft. And Lemire is both, hands down. His watercolors, he has a control of his paintbrush that I rarely see. He can control the tone of watercolor, and that's hard. That is a difficult task.
I read this book after Trillium came out, which was another fantastic Jeff Lemire book, and I went after how good that book was and found all of his
Sweet Tooth, and
Sweet Tooth,
Underwater
Welder, this book, anything that he had done on his own, where it was him doing the writing and the drawing and art. Every one of them I was thrilled with. Every one of them was fantastic. Go get this book.
And it's all super unique stories and everything.
Do you remember if he did the art on Platona?
He did not. He didn't do the art, but they did a backup in it that he actually did. That was kind of like the pre-story before the events of the book.
That's right.
And he did the art in that.
In
Essex County, he actually didn't do any colors on. As far as I know, for the original, I know in the trade paperback it's all in black and white.
Yeah,
but highly recommend it. Go check it out. They have They originally released it in 3 different books, but now they have it to where it's a complete collection.
Well, and in that complete collection, the hardcover, I don't own it, but I know people who do. That's what I love about those collections like that is you get not only the story in its original form, you also get a lot of back matter that was not in the original collections or anything. But there's also covers where other artists, or at least pinups, where other artists have drawn these characters and taken what Jeff Lemire has created and put their spin on it. There's some gorgeous art in there, but there's also extra Jeff Lemire art, and extra Jeff Lemire art is just worth the cost of the book alone. And I really need to read this. I really
You do. Okay, so that moves us back into kind of the fantastical with my book. Well, semi-fantastical. I'm going to talk about Trans-Metropolitan, which is a Warren Ellis and Derek Robertson book. It was published by DC Comics. The book takes place in the 23rd century. It revolves around political journalist Spider Jerusalem, who is very clearly a Hunter S. Thompson ripoff.
Absolutely.
With the greatest name in comics ever.
Oh, yeah. Surely, if you've seen Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas or the Backcountry video by Avenged Sevenfold, you know who Hunter S. Thompson is. If you don't know who Hunter S. Thompson is, you really should do some research and figure it out.
Very interesting fellow.
He was, and a great political journalist, despite all of his flaws as a human.
He just did a lot of drugs.
Yes. A lot of mind-altering drugs. So anyways, this the book starts, Spider's in a self-imposed retirement where he's trying to publish books because he's so fed up with politics that he just checks out from the world. He's living in the mountains as kind of Unabomber style, just out there by himself, and his publisher calls him and is mad because he hasn't released any books lately. So his old editor from the World newspaper calls him and says, I know you're in trouble. I know you need a job. We need a political analysis. Hires him to come back. Against all of his better judgment, he moves back to the city and starts doing journalism again. The first article he is involved in, or the first news story he's involved in, has to do with transient humans that are altering their DNA to become other species, whether it's alien or whatever, but they're changing the fundamentals of who they are. In today's day and age, you can see how this book was really ahead of its time when it was written with the things that are going on in our culture now. And so he's investigating this story, and the guy that is the head of the transient movement, his name is Fred Christ, actually is paid to start a riot so that they can bring the police in and take out a bunch of these transient people. So he is sitting there with his camera on top of a building, sees all of this happening. He videotapes it, goes live. Next thing he knows, he's back at the top of the limelight in the media, as a media darling. It goes from there. Then it has a bunch of independent one-off stories that he does so that you can see what this city is all about that he lives in and what the world is all about. It's really relevant to today's political environment, in my opinion, this book is, because he did everything he could to not get this guy elected. And against his better knowledge and trying to get it all out there for the people to see, they still elected this guy. And so now he's just so fed up that he's doing everything he can to try and get the guy not elected for the next cycle.
Right.
Again, way ahead of his time with the current political state.
Yeah,
everything you know bad about him, he still gets elected.
Yeah.
Huh.
Right.
All right, sorry. I had to chime in on that.
That's one of the reasons I chose this book, because even though it was written back in the, I want to say, 90s.
Yeah, definitely.
Even though it was written back in the 90s, it still is very relevant today with our political culture and the culture going on, counterculture going on around us, if you want to call it that. It delves into some very real topics of religion, politics, again, transient humans, which could be transferred, of course, to the trans movement. There's so many things that play into today's world, even though this book takes place in the 23rd century. The time of this book is the 23rd century. It's fantastic. Get out there, read it. It's a very cyberpunk look at postmodern cyberpunk look at Hunter S. Thompson. The guy's very much got the same flaws that Hunter S. Thompson has and the same good qualities that Hunter S. Thompson had. He's a drug addict. He makes no bones about it. He has his editor delivering drugs to his house on a daily basis. He's got aides that are helping him out there in the world, and they're helping him get drugs. And I mean, and yet he's still publishing quality material and putting it out there. So it's fantastic. It's Warren Ellis. Him and Garth Ennis, to me, are some of the most creative writers that are out there as far as bringing us a I hate to use this, but they're almost today's version of Alan Moore.
A little bit, yeah, I can see what you mean.
They're bringing us an alternate take or a fresh look on our society and forcing us to view society through a different lens. And it turns out that both of these guys are right more than they're wrong. So,
well, yeah, and so I've said it on the show before. Warren Ellis is hands down one of my favorite writers. He has his hand on the pulse of global society. It's not even just one or the other. Because again, I'm not 100% sure, but I think Warren Ellis is also British, or
I believe so,
at least Western European. He can read between the lines. I've read articles and essays that he's written on this book in particular. We talk about how timely it is that how this book translates to our modern thing. He based so much of this book off of Nixon.
Oh yeah,
a lot of this book was based off of the Watergate scandals and Nixon's long and storied history of corruption prior to becoming the Republican nominee for the president back in the day. And
still getting elected.
It's one of those things that, it's still getting elected. It's one of those things, the more things change, the more they kind of stay the same. But he also writes it in a way that it is still applicable. The book does not get stale.
I think he calls the president the beast through the whole thing.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've read that. And what I'll say for me personally, even though I just made a kind of a political comment on it, I don't dive into that kind of stuff. I stay away from that kind of stuff. It's been years, but I've read that entire series.
Yeah.
It's just, he writes it in a way that's interesting. And of course, I think the cyberpunk kind of futuristic alternate timeline kind of helped keep you interested. And just the world he painted with it, even beyond what's like spider-specific like targets, there's still a lot going on in that book.
Oh, yeah.
It's postmodern political satire. I mean, it's...
I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if you've read it more recently, remember more, like, you mentioned he had aides, he had helpers that worked him on the stories. One of them was like a former stripper or a prostitute. And it's just like, hopefully I'm remembering correctly, I'm about to get a dip into my mind of weirdness. Like, she had barcodes over her breast, right? Because that's how they had to pay for it, to tip it or something like that.
I don't remember that.
I'm pretty sure that was a thing. Like, it was like, she had no nipple, just barcode, and you had to, like, scan them that way.
Sounds like something
I'm going to look up to make sure I'm not just a pervert, which I am anyway, so it doesn't matter. But it was a unique story, and a political story that kept me interested. It's pretty says a lot.
There's, in this story, hundreds of different religions, if not thousands at this time. There's cultures where people are actually transferring their consciousness into robots, which we're now hearing we're maybe not that far off.
That's my plan.
Yeah, right? So there's so many interesting parts to it that even if politics isn't your thing and you're not looking at it for the political satire, it's a good story about a journalist that's just living in this, again, postmodern cyberpunk world.
Yeah.
And, it's fantastic. It's a great book. It's a lot of fun. It was actually recommended to me by Matt, which surprises me because it would be a book that he absolutely would not recommend.
Now, you're talking about our buddy that owns and operates Capel Comics over in Sherwood, Arkansas. Just for those of you who may not know. But yeah, so fun fact about this, because I knew you're a big fan of the story. Did you know that the first page of the second book has been written and drawn?
I did because I've seen your post, but go ahead and tell people.
All right, so the story of Trans-Metropolitan, it's over. It's been written and it's done. They're not actually coming out with a second book. However, there is a store, a comic book shop in San Francisco called Isotope Comics. Amazing place. I went there on my honeymoon, got to meet the manager and the owner. Fantastic place. This store is famous because they have some of the largest named artists come in and draw on toilet seats. You did not hear that wrong. Toilet seats. And what they have done is they had Warren Ellis come in and write the script. He was doing a signing, and somebody was willing to pay to get him to do something on a toilet seat. And they said, "Hey, draw me write the first page of the next part of this story." And so he did. And they had the artist come in and draw it. And so now, side by side in the store, you've got 2 toilet seats with the first page of the script and the first page drawn of the second part of Transmet. And I think that's hilarious.
Yeah, that's awesome. I would love to see a second book.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Warren Ellis might get bored someday.
I wish Warren Ellis would go back to doing his own large-scale, creator-owned stuff or creator-inspired worlds.
So I think I don't want to say he's collecting a check. He's making money right now. He's interested in making money. And so he's been doing these 12-issue arcs all over the place. Anything from James Bond, had a really good run on Moon Knight not too long ago.
Really good first 6 issues.
Yeah. And so he's getting paid. And I think he does a lot more writing than what we realize. I know he's worked on Castlevania that we spoke about last episode. And so he's staying busy. But yeah, I kind of hope he's got one more good story in there somewhere.
Right.
Really hope he's got one more good story in there somewhere.
Absolutely. So get out and get that book, guys. You can pick it up at all your local comic book stores. It's still in print. It's out there. It's available. Any local comic book store should have at least the first volume and be willing to order the rest for you after you read it. If not, I know the big book store chains can order it for you.
I do want to throw out there that this is not for children. So
most of the books we discuss,
absolutely.
I don't even know that this book is for teenagers in some aspects too, though. So I just want to.
Yeah, I mean, it deals with a lot of very deep subjects in a satirical way, but it deals with them. So it deals with police brutality, political corruption, flaws in the religious system. I mean, there's so many things that it deals with in such a perverse look at our society.
Or a look at a perverse society.
Both.
Yeah.
It's both. So, yeah, it's a good book. Get out there, read it. I bet you enjoy it. If not, there's no money back guarantee.
So, I mean, people who have been listening to our show and those of people who are friends with us, they know that out of the 4 of us, I'm probably the least person that's into the cosplay. Jerry and Sean are both active cosplayers. Craig likes it a little bit more than I do, but some of the
about Sean's nickname, the cosplay.
I am the cosplay.
That's his superhero. Yeah, he is the cosplay. Some of the best cosplays I've ever seen in my life have been Spider Jerusalem.
You just have to be willing to shave your head and tattoo a spider on the top of your head.
Some of the best ones have been that, and it's so because when you see those people, they get so much into that character. It's so quirky and fun.
And apparently, if you want to be his assistant, you tattoo barcodes over your nipples.
And get drugs.
I could not find any images to confirm that, but you have the book probably somewhere.
I'll have to check
and make sure I'm not insane or, dirty-minded, which is both probably true.
Part of me is just really happy to know that somewhere some NSA agent is looking at your search history and looking at barcode nipples. So, all right. Well, I guess that means I'm last but not least. So the book I want to talk about is actually a book that I've spoken a little bit about before. And if you follow our social media site, you can see a review that I did for it not too long ago. The book is called Hellbillies, Moonshine and Monsters. And it's put out by a small indie publisher called Kingbone Press that I've been fortunate enough to meet with. I know the guys are great guys. They just had a really,
You're not
really
doing this because of the name of the publisher.
Kingbone.
Yeah.
I tried to trademark that, but they wouldn't let me. But they just had a really good event at Heroes Con and did really well. Super nice guys. Super happy to not only support them because I like them and know them, but also because they put out really, really quality indie level stuff. It's really fun. So a lot of comics work really hard to hide their influences. This is not one of those books. This book kind of invites readers to recognize and celebrate the influences with the creators while they're delivering their stories that are really compelling. Hellbillies is one of these comics. It fully embraces its pop culture roots. The trade paperback, which you can order now, it hasn't actually, I think it's been being printed. You can buy it from them, but now I think you can order it off their website. It collects 5.5 years of what can only be described as an indie labor of love from John Westhoff, Brian Boyles, Timothy O'Brien, and Sean Fagan. It's 390 pages, full color. It's the complete collection of the entire Hellbillies series that's made up of 15 issues, 4 short stories, and a number of enjoyable extras. Hellbillies is the story of a family named the Conways. They're a southern family of moonshine-swilling monster hunters who exist behind the veil, so to speak. And by that I mean they're the ones who fight the creatures who go bump in the night. They're not interested in being part of mainstream culture. They're not hanging out downtown. They're not watching TV. They're existing. They don't want you to know they're there because that makes it a little bit easier to do their job. So Eustace and Cousin Anne, who is a large, burly, bearded fellow, which I needed to just put that because when you hear the word Cousin Anne, that's probably not what you're thinking. And Eustace's dad, Pops, they quietly protect their little corner of the southern United States from the nasties, from the monsters, from everything. Mary is a big city reporter who stumbles into their lives after becoming and becomes an unofficial part of the family, and often a source of contention between Pops and Eustace. Together, the quartet of really Dukes of Hazzard style adventurers run headlong into a variety of supernatural conflicts involving oversized reptiles, demon-possessed adolescents, giant-sized swamp man-things, and a nefarious Lovecraftian overlord who mysteriously moves the plot forward as the team learns to navigate one another's strong personalities, character flaws, and preconceived ideals. They tap into so much of Golden Age style comics love. I want to say science fiction, of science fantasy. These guys are not scared to just really reach in and grab all of these pop culture elements that we know and love that have inspired a number of things and unabashedly pull it to the surface. Really just drag it up so you can see it and appreciate it for what it is. Instead of trying to pretend like they're just touching on it, but it's really something that they, instead of trying to hide it behind their own creative influence, these guys aren't doing that. They're really just bringing it to the forefront saying, hey, look how much we appreciate these things. And they're also doing their own thing with it, which I think is really, really cool. Westhoff impressively wields the story's pacing. It's like the dude he knows what tools he has in his toolbox. Many writers lose themselves in plot or character building, but Westhoff knows exactly when to spur the story forward or when to slow the narrative down so that the reader can exist in the moment and experience the world that he and his team are creating. He allows the reader time to appreciate the moments and relationships and character tropes. He builds suspension before eagerly pushing them onto the next panel, scene, page, or chapter. He plays with Hellbillies, the timeline, in a really interesting way. He moves through the character story and jumbles up the time sequence. It can be distorting at first, but you learn the book kind of teaches you how to read itself. And as you get through the book, you kind of realize that he's doing this on purpose. Their plan moves, and almost like a Tarantino thing. And you actually get a nod to some pulp fiction characters in the book. So again, they're not hiding it. He's flat out telling you, this is what this is. Boyle's cartooning style is simple and really energetic. It pairs well with the whimsical world of Hellbillies. His art avoids the photorealism that's prominent in a lot of today's mainstream comics, and it pulls from that long-loved newspaper artist style like Chick Young or Mort Walker, contemporary artists like Kyle Starks. He uses a different style for each character. Every line of Anne is rounded. He's a very oval-shaped character. He has no sharp corners. His eyes are vacant, pupilless all the time. He's kind of a simple and happy. Imagine the Big Hero 6. Now put a beard on him and some overalls, and in a lot of ways you've got Eustace. Not Eustace, cousin. Yeah, Eustace. No, Cousin Anne. Sorry. I'm trying to remember. I've got the book ordered, and I've got a PDF version of it. I don't have it sitting in front of me, though. Eustace is a long, lanky, rectangular character, often overburdened by concern, and you can actually see it. You can see how the stress just weighs on him. So to be able to convey that it's a credit to the artistic talent that goes in this book. The backgrounds are present, but not overwhelming in the book. They often just rely on simple angular lines to convey the setting, or they're just left blank to allow the colorist room to do their own storytelling with swaths of blues and greens. In that respect, O'Brien and Fagan really complement Boyle's comic strip style by filling the pages with reliable, time-honored reds, green, blues, and yellows. They're not doing the Jordy Belair thing where they go in and they put mauve in there, or chartreuse, or what was the title of this episode? Taupe and Monkeys.
Respect the taupe.
It's a fun-filled, southern-fueled romp put together with the basic elements of what makes comics great. Really, really spoke to me. It's a straightforward, no-frills style, and it really grabs the adventurous kid in us all. It's mysterious, suspenseful, wonderfully gritty, just like the characters that are in it. It's a book I'm going to encourage everyone to go onto kingbonepress.com and order to support it because it's just phenomenal. It's Southern Gothic storytelling with a hand in every aspect of horror imaginable.
Awesome. I really can't wait to read it. I haven't had a chance to read it yet. I've just been so busy keeping up with my weekly pile, but
I mean, to be fair, your weekly pile is
as many comics as I get in 2 months, probably.
So I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I've had it in there on my email to get to it, and I'm glad that you took the time to read it. And to comment on
it's so good.
You can definitely tell which one of the group is the scholar, right? Out of this group.
Yeah, okay, it'll take for the spoilers. Jeez.
I said scholar, not spoiler.
I know.
What did I spoil?
No, I'm just messing with
you. I just want to make sure I didn't actually.
I don't know if you want to say scholar or sellout, because I see a Kingbone Press sticker on his laptop in front of me. You're supposed to share any sponsorship fees we get.
I actually bought that sticker from the guys at C2E2.
You're a big supporter of indie and quality books in general. So.
Yeah, and again, just really great guys. And awesome. I really hope this book takes off and those dudes do
get out there
really
and get
well.
It,
get it.
I mean, get that book.
No, get it. Get it too.
Of course,
we want our listeners to get it.
Don't stop. Get it.
Get it.
Get it, God.
All right. So all of those books are really good, from everything from Preacher to Trans-Met, from Essex County.
Any of you are going to get punched at this moment.
Wow. I'm sorry.
You're all me and Jerry right now.
Go check those books out, guys. A lot of fun. Really, really, you can get them all in collections. You don't have to hunt down single issues. You can straight up order them. You can sit them down and read them at your leisure, and it's going to make for a good time. You won't be disappointed. And if you are, tell us why. If you are, tell us why you don't dig some of these things. Start that conversation. It's okay not to like things. It's just not okay to be an asshole.
No, absolutely. In the trade paperback specials, this second one we've done, they're some of my favorites that we do because we get to really share some of our passions in comics with people.
Right.
Some of the stuff that we've read that have led us to where we currently are in comics. Because none of us just started reading yesterday. All of us have been reading comics for a good portion of our lives. So to be able to share some of that with you guys, and we hope that you go pick them up and you enjoy them as well. That's kind of the point of this whole podcast, is to share our love of comics. And the trade paperbacks, to me, is where we really get into that, because we can talk about, again, the stuff that inspired us to be the comic fans we are.
For sure. And I love that whenever we talk about them, we get into some of the tangential stuff, because these things have been around so much and they've influenced so much that, when we talk about a book like Essex County, we also go into list like 5 other Jeff Lemire things.
Oh, yeah.
Or when we talk about a book like Trans-Met, you go into listen to a bunch of other things that have been inspired and also inspired book. And the same thing with Garth Ennis's Preacher. There's just so much wrapped in those books, and now they've had time to kind of marinate in the at least the comics world.
Pop culture, yeah.
That their little tendrils just reach out and go everywhere and dip into everything. So, well, let's get away a little bit from talking about books that have been around for a while and are at least long enough to be collected, and let's talk about some new stuff, some single issues that are sitting on the shelf at your local comic book shop right now. This is the portion of the show that we like to call Smothered, Covered in Comic, Taupe and Monkeys. I'm not going to let this go.
Special edition.
So I'm going to talk about Hawkman #1 from DC Comics. It was written by Robert Vendetti and drawn by Brian Hitch. The inks are by Andrew Curry and Brian Hitch, and colors by Alex Sinclair. First thing about this book is I did not expect this book to be great.
It was so good.
It's so much better than it had really any right to be based on past Hawkman books. The art in this book is beautiful. Brian Hitch, who is an amazing artist anyways, but this book is just beautifully drawn. It's beautifully colored. Everything about this book was good. One of the big problems with Hawkman, for anybody that's tried to read Hawkman, is that he's got this real convoluted continuity because every writer that comes on wants to change his backstory.
Yeah.
They want to give him a different starting point. So what they did in this was really rather ingenious in that they have made him a reincarnated version of all of these other lives.
Kind of the same thing that they did with Wonder Woman a little bit, although they took it further.
Yeah, so even digging into it more, because not only did they use that to explain all these other origin stories that you have for Hawkman, they're actually wrapping it up and making it part of this story. It's the driving force of this story. So he knows that he's got more to his past than he can remember. And it's Carter Hall. He's an archaeologist, of course. And he knows there's more to his past than he can remember. He knows that he's been reincarnated multiple times, but he doesn't know his entire past. So as the archaeologist, he's out looking for an artifact that can restore his memory of his past to him. So he goes and he finds this artifact, which the Carter Hall archaeologist, it's very kind of Indiana Jones. Yeah. And then he has to turn into Hawkman to fight his way out because a giant gorilla statue comes to life and tries to kill him.
Nice. As they do.
Yeah, as they do.
It happens, right?
To the best of us. Yes. What was it, Taupe?
It actually was
things
not. It's unfortunate that it was not a taupe statue of a gorilla because it would have fit the...
I'm missing out.
They're
dropping the ball. Episode. I'm done with the book now.
Right. So he gets the artifact. He goes and gets some help. They use magic on the artifact, put some blood on it, and he sees all of his past lives at once flashed through his head in the time it takes for him to fall from his chair to the floor. And he also realizes something else, that there's a threat coming that all of these lives have led him to, and is he too late to stop it? Come back for issue 2, because that's where it leaves you. So it's,
I'm there. And this, if I'm not mistaken, this is a mini series, right?
I believe it is, which is unfortunate if they're finally going to nail Hawkman and that it's going to be a short story, but...
So I'm not super familiar with Hawkman. The little bits I've always have seen, though, reincarnation is a big factor into his history, right? Because like from the Justice League cartoon to the Legends of Tomorrow, reincarnation always seems to be a big thing. Like you mentioned, like I think that's really awesome that they are doing all the past lives.
So
and working that into the story.
It has been, and so, but there have just been different ways they've done it. So, I mean, the main story and kind of the one I think most people know, and the one I think that presented in the CW show was from the Egyptian aspect of, they were...
It's very Dr. Fate-like.
Kind of gods and kings kind of thing. But there's also a backstory where they're an alien race from Thanagar. Hawk World is an amazing series.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because that's one of the things I was going to say. I love the concept of Hawkman.
Yeah.
I really do. I mean, it's a great concept. It's just never, other than Hawk World, maybe, has never really fulfilled that for me. The concept has never really been fulfilled to its max potential, in my opinion. So I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, not at all. Not at all. That's, you're absolutely right. And that's the thing is each one of those stories, it has its own moment. It has its own benefit, and that lends itself to a good plot. But overall, you've just got these decades and decades of a jumbled, muddled mess that they've finally unfucked.
Well, and I think it's fantastic. What they're doing is fantastic. They're using all of these past lives to drive this story, and it seems like it's going to tie into the Justice League stuff that's going on because it was a Colossus creature that showed up. So I think it's going to tie into the current Justice League book from the way it ended.
Which he's in.
Right. Which, if for no other reason, Brian Hitch's art, it's worth the $2.99 or $3.99 that the book is to buy it for no other reason than for that art.
I like to refer to Hitch as the current king of cross-thatching.
Yeah.
Because Brian Hitch also needs to come with a good inker. Yeah, and that's so. There are some books that Brian Hitch has been the artist on that have missed for me, which is surprising because I love most of his stuff, everything from his Justice League work to the stuff he did on the Hulk. He has to have a good inker because especially with things like cross hatching, you need a really fine line. And this current inker, and I'm not sure who did the inking on the book.
It's Andrew Curry, but he also did it some of it himself.
Oh, did he? Very cool.
They both have credit for inking.
I just want to point out that there is the splash panel that you were talking about where they go through the everything, where they're doing not only have you been reincarnated in time, you've been reincarnated in space. Yeah, wonderfully done.
Because it ties the Thrungarian stuff into it. At one point, it was a Kryptonian now. So I mean, there's all different.
So they addressed the gambit of
everything.
All his origin.
Everything. It's not just his human form; it's his alien form as well. So
did they address though the original origin that he was in Flash Gordon?
Thank
you, Jerry. Thank you for the sticker, Jerry.
It took me a second. But that's one of the things. Literally in that movie, in the Flash Gordon movie, my favorite character.
Oh, he was awesome.
Is the Hawkman.
He's not Hawkman, but he should be. Yeah, because he was great.
I mean, he even carries a mace.
I had to.
No, you did. You did, and I think we.
You're welcome. When we do a camp movie special, that is my favorite camp movie of all time.
It really is. It's. I think mine's still Howard the Duck, but but there was one scene I wanted to mention there that he draws. So in the story, Hawkman, his wings are not permanent.
Yeah,
they kind of he can hide them somehow. They shrink back to his
emblem.
Body. Yeah,
it shows him putting the emblem on, and then he transforms
his
into
harness.
Hawkman.
Yeah,
that's cool.
It is a really hard thing to do to show something like that, and you see it in Ant-Man comics, you see it in the Atom comics where they're showing size differentiation,
right? And
a lot of times they have to use multiple panels. I understood what was happening in that moment in one single image. You just you know, Hitch shows you. No, these wings are shrinking in one image, in one panel. Yep. And it's a testament to that man's artistic ability. And just like Sean was just saying, he reaches in and laces together 60 years of fuddled continuity in 2 pages? Are you fucking kidding me?
That's talent.
Like, damn, dog.
And honestly, this was the whole point of Metal, was to get Hawkman back into the DC universe. I mean, it really was, because it all had to do with the 10th Metal, which Carter Hall is... he became Hawkman based off of the Nth Metal, so it all tied in together. So it was their way of bringing him into current continuity, along with some of the new stories they're telling. But
pure love, man.
It was a great book. I was I was really pleasantly surprised. I did not expect it to be good, and it was.
Did they mention Hot Girl at all?
No,
not in this, but she is in Justice League.
Okay, so, that was one.
And just real quick, last week we talked about some new books that another publisher, Valiant's going to be putting out. Robert Venditti wrote a lot of stuff for them, and last week started reading some of that stuff. Excellent stuff, dude. If you haven't read, there's a series called Armor Hunters.
Right.
It's 4 issues. Go read it, dude. Because I don't know if you got on that one or not. So it's really fun.
I did not. Venditti is hit or miss for me.
Is he?
Some of his Green Lantern stuff. I mean, he also had the problem of following up Jeff Johns in Green Lantern. So some of it's fantastic. Some of it's a miss for me. But
is that like the only book that you don't own, Craig? Armor.
I don't read Valiant.
Armor
Hunters. I was about to say Armor Wars, but I was like, no, wait.
It has nothing to do with Valiant itself. It's just I collect so many publishers that I just
You're finally at the point where you got to sort of pick and choose because there's so much good stuff coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a good problem to have, man. Well, speaking of good stuff, I'm going to jump us over and into the House of Ideas, into a Marvel book. So the book I want to talk to you about this week is Old Man Logan, number 41. This was written by Ed Brisson, drawn by Francesco Mana, and it was colored by Carlos Lopez. I know I didn't do a book report on this one.
No, that wasn't a mispronunciation. He literally couldn't remember the damn name.
Oh, okay.
That was different.
They can still come fight me if they want to.
There you go.
I'm okay.
Hey, look, we got clarifications about our challenges.
Listen.
Usually it's a mispronunciation, not knowing the wrong fucking name entirely.
Listen, I cannot finish unless you say it.
And look him in the eye.
How many times can you say that, Jerry?
A lot. Only twice on this podcast.
So, God bless. Okay, Old Man Logan, number 41. So here's why I love this book. One of my favorite villains makes an appearance in this book and is going to be a big part of this arc. It's Kraven the Hunter. I love this character's history. He's my favorite spider villain. Well, he shows up. A little bit of backstory. We're not dealing with the Wolverine that you know from the X-Men cartoons. If you haven't been reading this book, this is a Wolverine that is a time-displaced character from another universe that he's old. His healing factor isn't working. He recently had his hand cut off, which I'm a little bit confused about. But I'm guessing because his bones are adamantium and not his tendons, that's why.
It worked at Age of Apocalypse. Too,
Yeah,
so,
do his claws get warm?
I don't think so. No, his no Charles Soule.
It's good for heating up his coffee.
Anyway, so this Old Man Logan is on the downhill slope of things. He's not doing well. He's a shadow of the man he used to be. Kraven the Hunter is a hunter. He is one of the, I guess, kind of self-proclaimed fiercest people and most dangerous. He's based off of a character from the most dangerous game, essentially. He hunts the things that can hunt you back, which I don't know if this has ever been done before, where he and Wolverine have kind of gone after each other, but it's a good concept, at least in theory. This was a fun first issue where he shows up, manages to capture Old Man Logan, uses some hired goons from like D-level continuity to distract him, darts him, captures him, and then takes him to, in all of Marvel, where would you take somebody if you wanted to hunt them?
Savage Land?
The Savage Land. I love that was like synchronized.
It's better than our commercial.
Not wrong.
You're right. Kraven does the villain thing where he just waxes poetic about his evil plan, which, to be fair, I love Kraven. Fun character. He's not largely successful in his endeavors. Like, I don't know why he has the self-esteem that he does, because he fails a lot. Like, you couldn't hunt Spider-Man in Brooklyn, cuz you're gonna hunt Wolverine in the Savage Land.
Wasn't that Ultimate Spider-Man arc or something like that, where Kraven was like, he had the TV show, he was having everyone record it, he just could not get Spider-Man.
Yeah,
I think it was Ultimate
I haven't
Spider-Man
read,
a
you
while
talking about
back.
the Bendis Bagley stuff? Yeah, I haven't read that.
He tried, and like, he finally they built it up. Spider-Man's fighting other villains, handling stuff, and Kraven's got a reality TV crew with him the whole time.
Yeah.
Finally meets with Spider-Man. Spider-Man's like, you know what? I know you've been on me. I've been busy. Fine, let's do this. Let's throw it down. He throws one punch at Kraven and knocks him clean out. He goes, oh, I thought he had superpowers. I thought he had the cameras right on him. Like, no, I didn't know he was going to use them.
Yeah, he's just a
And
man.
that's Kraven.
He's a little, he's a skilled man, but he's just a man. But
No, I don't think that's 100% true.
you think, does he
In the
have some?
Yeah, he's had some serum to increase his
Stuff that he breathes in.
to increase his human prowess.
See, I don't know if this is the ultimate version or
In the main universe,
in the main universe.
Yeah.
Okay.
in the Ultimate
He's using
Universe,
the
he didn't
cartoon.
have any powers. But,
Okay, let me rephrase. He's a character that I really enjoy. I may not know that much about him. He's hot.
I was wondering where
we
the
got
sexual
to
attraction.
the meat.
Yeah, I was wondering where the
That's
sexual
actual
attraction was.
I don't necessarily need to read him. He's a kind of a furry daddy that makes me feel good.
he's well, it's just my love of Spider-Man that makes me know that.
Yeah,
But,
for sure.
I don't know personally if I'm hunting Wolverine, that I'm going to take Wolverine to the Savage Land. I mean, out of all the places on Earth, I'm not taking him where he can go completely feral.
And that's the thing. That's what's going to bring the thing to it. Because he's got so little respect for Old Man Logan, he doesn't think of this as he's hunting
It's not a...
him in his prime.
It's a pride of him being a hunter, though, too. He wants him to go.
Well, I was going to say,
Especially a Wolverine that's not afraid to kill.
Yeah.
You know?
he's taking him there because he wants more of a challenge, because he's lost respect for who Old Man Logan. He thinks he's a shadow of his former self. And so he's taken to a place where the environment will create a challenge. And look, that's going to work against him. Breeson's not doing a jump into confusing you about what's going on. This is just flat out good comics and storytelling.
Yeah. So is this I haven't read this issue yet. Just haven't made it there for this week. But is this still a continuation of Fisk hiring people?
I don't
to
know
go
about
after?
that.
Okay.
No, I don't think this is that. So I know that Kraven hired people to go after Wolverine. I don't know that Kraven has been hired. I think he just wants a trophy.
Okay.
And so it's like I said, this is not Breeson going all out to try to confuse you about what's happening. This is Kraven being the hunter who wants
This is
trophy
a
on the wall.
Craven that does not know the Logan he's hunting, because as Jerry said, this is the Logan that killed every X-Men in his universe and every hero in his universe because he didn't agree with what they were.
Well, and he took him to a place where there's fucking dinosaurs.
Yeah.
And that's what without this book continues on till next month. You don't get the full story in one.
Right,
It's an ongoing thing. We're going to get more Old Man Logan chasing and also being chased by one of the most fearsome hunters in the Marvel Universe in a land where there are wolves, and they're dire wolves, and Tyrannosaurus Rexes. Rexi.
Mm-hmm.
Rexicus?
Rexus.
A flock of...
A murder of T-Rexes.
Yeah.
Are they taupe T-Rexes?
No, but there are probably taupe great apes, and I
Yes.
want that to happen.
It happens. In the Savage Land.
Correct me if I'm wrong, though. He killed the X-Men because Mysterio fucked with
Yeah,
him.
yeah. It was all. I mean, it's all. But yes, he wiped out all of the.
Which is fucking insane to think that Mysterio did that.
He beat
Which
the
showed
whole-
what Mysterio could be.
Also
if
a
written
good trade
properly.
paperback. I mean, while we're on the trade paper, go read it. Was it Mark Millar?
Yeah.
And I forget who did the art of
He,
that one because I'm a bad
beat
person.
the Hulk and the Hulk's family in that universe. An entire freaking family of Hulks. He beat them.
Inbred
So
hillbilly Hulks.
Hillbilly Hulks.
With the She-Hulk. Which, you know what? Can't blame the Hulk.
this is not the good Wolverine that has been. This is a Wolverine that has bent and broken.
Yeah, he's
And-
been through some shit.
Yes,
Like,
he's gone feral to the point of.
He's the greatest there is at what he does.
Well, arguably, no. He and this entire recent arc has been a lot of him trying to figure out who he is. And look, I know a lot of people are ready to see new, like the quote unquote standard Wolverine back. They're ready to see X-23 go back to being X-23. They're ready to see Old Man Logan go back to being just something. I really enjoy Ed Breeson's writing. I really enjoyed this series.
I want Wolverine back, but I don't want Old Man Logan to go.
I don't either.
It's been good. It's been really good.
Well, and especially if I'm going to get more art by Francisco Mana. It's a house style. Don't get me wrong, he's not doing anything super stylized. It's a house style.
Yeah.
It fits in well with what Marvel's entire line is meant to look like and do, but it's done well. There is one scene where they're inside a plane where everything is just so detailed. Even the small figure of Wolverine in a cage in the back, it's outstandingly done. Like, I would love to own that page of art. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It really is. He's got heavy lines as far as like the exterior, but he really goes into getting the small, minute details. And that may, again, credit to the inker. And I don't know if he inked himself or not, but he gets into these things and just really flushes it out. And you're drawing a book about an old man where he actually looks old. It doesn't just look like he is trying to make him look old. He actually looks old. You see Craven, and he looks like somebody who is a fierce hunter. And you see these wolves and dinosaurs, and he doesn't skimp on the detail. He really gets in there and really draws them. And then the colorist does his thing and makes it just, the entire thing comes together beautifully. Do I think that this is going to be a book that we'll remember in 10 years as a culmination of the great Old Man Logan series? Probably not. It's just fun. It's just really, really good, and it's worth picking up.
Well, not every arc has to be a seminal arc. Not every arc has to be the arc that you're going to remember it by. Sometimes the arcs are just good, fun comic stories.
If you want to read just a good, fun comic story, speaking of which, with Craven the Hunter, he's been hanging out with Squirrel Girl in the Squirrel Girl book, and that is just bananas. Really, really fun. So, yeah, I mean, Old Man Logan 41, fun story. I don't want to see Breeson get off this book. Wolverine getting hunted with dinosaurs, man. What else can you ask for? If you
It's
love
amazing.
comics,
Yeah,
that's what this
I'm
is.
excited to read it.
Sounds good. My book actually came out last week, but I only got to read it this week. And a big shout out to Jerry for putting it in my hand because I overlooked this completely. It's a new Image book called Sword Daughter. Issue number 1 came out last week. Written by Brian Wood, who I only just got a little glimpse of what he's written before. A couple of standout titles with Wolverine and the X-Men Alpha and Omega. And he did a run on the Conan books recently.
A really good run on the Conan books.
The Alpha and Omega we've actually talked about before.
That's why I thought, that's why I made sure to mention it. I heard it's supposed to be pretty good.
Running the school.
Right.
He also has done some amazing stuff with aliens and Predator properties.
Right.
Yeah.
So, art by Mac Chater. Colorist is Lauren Affe. And cover art is done by Greg Smallwood. Long and short, like I said, this is a setup book, of course, because it's the first issue, but it's a story that takes place in the Viking era. And it's actually, they said it's actually it's a Viking story inspired by samurai cinema. Which, I'll get into a little bit of the plot, and you'll kind of see where it's going with that for sure. The main characters is a little girl named Elsbeth and her father Dag. Basically, it starts off, you see Elsbeth. She is narrating the book, and an interesting way they're telling this story is she is the narrator, but when she speaks in like the actual like her, it's supposed to be her talking, it's only in symbols in her word balloon.
Huh.
So I don't know if it's like what they're trying to. That's the only thing that may be a little bit confusing because I don't like someone asked her a question. Like about like the beach or whatever, like she want to say the beach, and all you see is a wave, kind of a simple illustration of a wave. So I don't know really what they're like. Craig, you said you read it.
Yeah.
How did you take that? Like, is she
I
supposed
take
to
it
be
as
like
that, without giving too much away,
Right.
she's left to her own wiles for a while as a child.
Right.
And I feel like she's just got very minimal conversation skills.
So you think it's like this kind of basic language, and I can't really draw her like hand motion in a wave? Maybe that's kind of how I took it. Like maybe it's a little bit of body language.
I think they're just trying to show she has very minimalistic conversational or communication skills.
Right.
As
far as
whether
like,
it's with her hands or with her voice or whatever.
Right.
So,
And because, like I said, even though it is clearly her narrating,
yeah.
And maybe, who knows, it could be that narration of, like, she's speaking later on, maybe when she gets speech.
Yeah,
because it mentioned, like, the nuns of the convent tried to teach her, but she's always, like, being difficult.
I wonder if that's their way of depicting that she speaks through sign language.
Maybe. That's kind of what I was
be.
thinking, possibly. Like, and obviously they can't illustrate each individual hand movements. Maybe that's how they're doing it. But anyway, it's a very unique way of her communicating. I thought it was kind of interesting.
It's a very minimal communication skill. And that's regardless of why.
It's like she's speaking emoji.
In a sense, absolutely.
Actually, that's a great concept that I don't think anybody has done before.
Yeah. They did a Hawkman run.
Really?
Yeah, because he went deaf, and so he was using sign language. They had like every issue almost was completely silent.
They had a convoluted Hawkman.
Well, it was actually one of the better runs of Hawkman that they had. Yeah, and it's kind of a shame because I think Jeff Lemire took it over right after that, and it just wasn't the same.
Right on. All right, so the setup is, like I said, it's Viking era. There's been this band called the 40 Swords, who, like Vikings do, rape and pillage and all that kind of stuff, but they take a special interest in more killing than any. And basically, they wiped out Elsbeth and Dag's entire village. This was 10 years ago. After, like, Dag and her are the only ones that lived. And he, like, they called it sleep. I kind of picture more of just, like, he literally sat on a log, cannot believe, not comatose, but almost comatose. Like, he did not move for 10 years. They said they called it a sleep, but he just basically laid on a log. Elsbeth had been like taking care of him, feeding him. For 10 years, he didn't move. He didn't do anything. They called it that you've been a bump on a log for 10 years. She came around and he was finally like, I think, did she wake him by grabbing his sword? Was that when he first moved?
I think that's what happened.
Yeah, like she was finally getting big enough, and she obviously never forgot what happened. I saw her dad being comatose, and he had swords on his belt. Grabbed it, and he just backhands the shit out of her. But he finally gets up, and they set forth to avenge their village.
I mean, what parent doesn't wake up to beat their children?
I mean, it doesn't. It's more of like a reflexive movement.
Yeah,
something
like
touching a sword.
grabbing a sword and just bam.
But yeah, I get your point. But it doesn't come across as childish.
No, I was
at
just
all.
making a joke. I didn't get that at all.
Well, I just want to be clear for our listeners.
Without like giving away too much of the story, you can tell this is going to be a brutal revenge story, which is very Japanese cinema, very Chinese cinema, and set in a Viking setting, which I'm a huge fan of that TV series Viking, and just Viking lore, that time in history in general. I'm crazy excited about the next issue to come out, and it looks good. If you haven't seen it, or if you see it still on the shelf, because image number 1 is starting to fly off, so hopefully it's still available. I hate to give it a week later to talk about it, but
yeah, I need to go grab it.
Go check it out.
I haven't read it.
It's really good. One of the things about this book is that we think of Viking culture as being this invading culture that came to different parts, but they were also very tribalistic in their own culture and fought a lot amongst themselves. And for centuries, you had these warring kingdoms within their kingdom before they finally were able to unite and actually go forth and try and war with them.
And on a side note, if you're not watching Vikings on the History Channel, Sean and I keep up with that. Amazing show.
Yeah.
great show.
So
it depicts it very well.
I think what we're getting is a look into this clan culture.
Yeah. And it's just like, because I mean, like the Viking clans obviously fought. They couldn't go raid out into England or whatever. Right. They would steal from each other until there was a couple of kings that did manage to unite a lot of the tribes in history. This seems more, though, like, even if that is kind of that era where there is United Tribes, these fuckers just want to kill. They're masked.
Yeah.
And they're all just fucking brutal killers.
Yeah.
It's how they're selling them, as they're just a vicious band of killers. Like I said, I'm sure they take supplies and stuff, but they're in it to murder people more so than just raid for riches and food.
Yeah.
So it's looks like it's going to be
pillage, plunder, all of that.
There is a comedian named Hannibal Buress who does a bit about Vikings where they talk about raping and pillaging, and then they had to switch it to pillaging and plundering for PR reasons. and then they were wondering where they were supposed to be focusing on the murder. It's really funny. I'm probably going to stop by our LCS when we leave here and go pick that up just based off of that because I need to see it. I hope we get a Blood Eagle moment. Ooh. That's going to be fun to see.
I mean, if they depend, I could see that if they start picking off maybe members and start because they don't encounter them in this first issue, they encounter someone who is aligned with them.
Gotcha.
Not a member of the 40 Swords, but they run into somebody first and it's handled. Yes, I don't want to give anything away.
No, for sure.
Go out and read it. It's the start of what's going to be a great Viking era fantasy story.
So, on my side of things, I picked up an Image comic this week that, I don't know if any of you guys, did you guys read The Magic Order?
I have not read it yet. I read alphabetically and I made it through H.
I gotcha. Here lately, I've been somewhat hesitant of picking up Mark Millar stuff. It's been hit or miss for me. That is not to say that he hasn't written some really good shit that I've really enjoyed. For sure. But The Magic Order, if you haven't heard, Miller World was his own company, and it actually got bought out from Netflix, by Netflix. Right. So this is the first book that they've done with Netflix, and they made a trailer for it and everything, and they even have a QR code in the book to where you can look at the cover and it animates the cover. So we've got Mark Millar writing. I'll say it.
Olivier Coipel. Coipel, excuse me.
Fantastic.
Well, if you have a problem with how Caleb just pronounced your name, feel free to come on to this podcast and fight him about it.
Are we 3 for 3 so far?
I think we are.
So,
man,
we all
picking
suck.
some great people. Dave Stewart is colorist, and Peter Doherty as the letterer.
Doherty.
Once again, if you are upset with Jerry's pronunciation of your name, you are more than welcome to come on here. You don't have to talk to us. Just beat this shit out of here.
Jesus. So the whole synopsis of the book is that magic is real and exists in our current day world. It's not all fantastical and fun like Harry Potter is. It's pretty fucking dark and messed up.
Seen Harry Potter?
I'm about to say,
that's true.
Did you get to the end of Harry Potter?
Yeah. So it actually starts off with 2 silhouetted figures standing over a
fucking.
Yeah, some fucking, and then 2 silhouetted figures standing on a rooftop and causing a brutal murder. So we start off with this murder happening, and then they start introducing us to characters, other magicians, and it's slowly, showing us kind of the Moonstones. So we get Cordelia Moonstone first, and then we get Leonard Moonstone, who seems to be a more practical, old-fashioned magician, stage magician. You find out later on in the book that he's apparently the father. Cordelia is his daughter, and then he's got a son, Regan, who seems to be following in his father's footsteps and is probably eventually going to take over the show, because they mentioned that there's always been a Moonstone at this particular theater. And then they find out about the news of, this person at the beginning getting murdered. Turns out that it was a cousin of theirs, and it was part of their particular magical order. They actually do some pretty interesting stuff, and they have this thing called the Ceremony of the Broken Wand, which I guess whenever you pass away, your order gathers, and they have a standard funeral, and they take your wand and they break it in half and bury it with your corpse.
So that Harry Potter can't dig it up later. And
yeah, seriously. What's up with that shit?
If you hold the main character up against an Eevee, it evolves into something.
So it's kind of interesting because I was getting a present day world vibe from it, but all of these magicians and everything, they almost look like 60s gangsters, 50s and 60s gangsters, kind of. They've got the old-fashioned coats and pinstripe suits and the hats that they would wear back then, I guess fedoras and stuff like that. But they're wondering if it was a magical hit or something like that. And they mentioned somebody. They mentioned this.
He who shall not be named.
That's essentially what this character seems. I don't even think that they mentioned her name, but she appears with her dark wizard-looking people, and they essentially like, holy shit, did she just make the sun disappear? Like, that's how terrifying this woman is. And they can't really, they don't know if this was on her or somebody else, but they seem fairly freaked out and just upset by her presence here.
Did any
in
of them
general.
get itchy tattoos?
No, one of her people actually did transform into the dead man and kind of mock them. So then the people got pissed and was like, "Yeah, you need to leave like right now."
People just don't respect.
Yeah,
The dead.
well, like, and whenever he turns into him, he's like got the knife through his
Right.
throat, and he's like covered in blood and naked, and he's just, I don't know, it's just a really fucked up scene. So at that point, the son, Reagan, and his father are talking, and the daughter shows up late because she apparently is like, you know, the fuck up, but she's like magician. She talks about like when you first see her, she's in the back of a cop car, and they're like, how the fuck does a magician, you know, get arrested? She's like, well, whenever you're at a kid's birthday party and the wife finds you fucking the husband in the kitchen, you know, and then you have to fist fight the wife, it kind of puts you in that situation. And
Thought they were going to fist fight the kids.
As happened.
So the dad and the responsible son kind of mentions Gabriel, who you find out is the third child in the Moonstones, and he has pretty much turned his back on the entire order. He's grocery shopping when Reagan shows up, and Reagan's like got it all missed so nobody can see, and he's like, you know, don't you ever think about it or anything like that? And he says no, but then it cuts to a scene of a giant like downed Cthulhu-esque monster.
Pretty cool.
So you know that he thinks about it, but they allude to something happening, and he was on some kind of mission, and he had a daughter, and apparently he lost his daughter somehow. Reagan pretty much just kind of leaves it at that, like, oh, he doesn't want anything to do with us. So he leaves Gabriel alone, and you see kind of a memory of Gabriel's daughter and how she wants to be a wizard and everything when she grows up too. And then it shows a scene of like him crying over a coffin. After that, you pretty much get a like this crazy magical attack on some people, and you weren't introduced to these characters, but you recognize one of them from the funeral, and some weird shit happens, and it kind of shows like one of the silhouettes from the beginning of the book. So I thought it was a pretty interesting book. I'm gonna stick with it. The art was absolutely fucking beautiful.
Olivier Coipel is
Yeah, he's amazing.
Sure.
The things that they're gonna be doing in it. We joked about Harry Potter at the beginning. I fucking love Harry Potter.
Well,
I do too. Yeah, I wasn't
yeah.
thinking.
Oh yeah. I absolutely love like everything about that world and everything. And if you know, it seems like Mark Millar is like, hey, you know that thing that you really like? Well, this is it, but kind of twisted.
Yeah.
I feel like that's getting kind of old and gimmicky, but he sold me on a book again. But like I said,
as long as it makes its deadlines.
yeah,
Well, I mean,
absolutely.
look, Millar's a good writer. For me, my problem with Millar is that he, number one, all of his books seem to get presented as really cool ongoings, and then you'll find out that, oh, we're just kidding, it's a 6-issue series.
Mm-hmm.
And then they wrap, he does not stick the landing to me.
Yeah.
His last few books have been that way, just for me personally. And I don't want to talk ill of the man. He's extremely talented. He's written some stuff that I absolutely love. 2 years ago, he wrote a book called Huck that I reread it about once a year.
Mm-hmm.
Love the book. It's worth reading. Doesn't stick the landing. And I'm hoping he follows up with it. But he's had so much commercial success that I always feel like he's fishing for something. And if he doesn't get it, then he's not going to be interested in where it goes. Like, he doesn't want to stick around to follow through on it. And that kind of bugs me a little bit because as a consumer and as a person who loves the stories, I want you to, if you're asking me to invest in it, then I need you to invest in it.
I think he's become more conceptually good
Yeah.
than actually following through with the stories and finishing them up, like you said. I still love a lot of this stuff. I liked Huck. I thought the ending was fine on Huck.
Did you?
Yeah.
That's fair. I mean,
But I definitely feel that on some of his other stuff. Jupiter Circle and that whole group of books just kind of
I kind of fell off of it.
Yeah. Starlight was a good one.
Yeah.
I didn't read Starlight.
But it didn't. Yeah, but again, the ending was just kind of. But I'm definitely. I got this in my read pile. I would have picked it up for Copiel. It was one of my favorite Thor runs ever. Was the one he was on. I would have picked it up for his art anyways. But I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely beautiful book. And I mean, with him with Netflix now, you never know what exactly like they're planning, because they could eventually make a series or something. And just from that first issue, I would be interested if they made a series of it. I would watch it.
I think that's where he's going with all of his stuff now. It's reasons why he's kind of retiring.
Right.
Hit Girl and Kick Ass and letting other people take them over, because he's going to start writing new things that are for the Netflix universe.
Most of the stuff that he writes now is intended to be picked up and put on film in some aspect or another.
And they actually, like, in the back, the last few pages are actual ads for, like, Netflix stuff. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a good gimmick or a good deal that he's landed for himself to be able to put his entire world in this,
absolutely.
And get Netflix money to support it. So, what it's going to do, it's going to draw great artists to his books, because there's a chance of every one of his books getting optioned. So he's going to get the top tier artist as well.
People are going to buy their books because they're always looking for that next big The Walking Dead.
Yeah. If it's getting optioned, there's a chance that
it's going to be worth some money.
Yeah. So.
And which is it's not a reason not to buy a book by any means.
And with Mark Millar or Miller, or however you say his name, it's because I've heard it both ways.
Mark Millar or Miller, you are welcome to come onto the podcast and correct us, because we would love to find out in person.
Today. Jeez.
I love that we didn't ask Mark Millar to come fight us.
Dude, he wrote Kick-Ass. I'm not sure. He might actually kick our ass. I don't want to fight.
I think we're pretty safe.
Did you say that Dave Stewart did the colors on that? Was that who it was? Yeah, Dave is certainly no slouch on the inks either. Wonderful, wonderful colorist. Kind of has a matte palette a lot of times.
Yeah.
Really dark, really matte. Fantastic job. I actually wanted to throw something back over to what we were talking about with Sean's book. You said Greg Smallwood did the cover.
Yes.
To that one. Kind of a local thing. On the 30th, a local comic shop here in town in Little Rock in Central Arkansas is celebrating their 12th anniversary of being open, although their 12th anniversary was a couple months ago. They're having a big event, and they're having a number of fairly talented artists, and one of which is going to be Greg and his sister Meg Smallwood are going to be at Kapow Comics on Keel Avenue in Sherwood, signing books, maybe doing some art. I want to say that probably at least 3 out of the 4 of us are going to be there. I'm unfortunately going to be on vacation at that point and can't be there. But if you're listening to the podcast, you want to come up to Kapow and meet us or meet Greg Smallwood, support a local comic shop. It's well worth doing. And I mean, it's doing great art, doing wonderful work. So definitely worth coming to see. Well, I think that we have about run our course on our books of the week, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Anything else anybody want to cover as far as books that came out this week that they think deserve an honorable mention?
Plastic Man, I understand, was very good. I have not read it yet, but the one panel I did see was amazing, where he was converted himself into Wonder Woman.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So, can't wait to get to that book. It was written by Gail Simone. So it's in my pile. It was the other one I was potentially going to talk about this week. So
I'm still getting caught up on my read pile. So
Thor #1 came out this week.
I haven't read that yet either. It's
really, really good. Not as good as maybe as I want it to be. It's still Jason Aaron writing. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful art.
But it had an MC Hammer in it.
It did have an MC Hammer in it. Mike Del Mundo, and I'm not going to tell you where it's at. Go figure it out and see if you can find it. Mike Del Mundo is a wonderful artist that did a great job on that. Got to see another guy that I really love, Namor. He showed up for a brief moment in it, so worth going and picking up that book.
one more book, The End of Death of Love. This week.
Oh my God.
And oh my God. That opening page alone
laughed
was
until
worth
I hurt.
the entire book. But it was fantastic.
until I
Justin Jordan and Danelle DeLay. Fantastic book. It's now over. You'll be able to pick up the trade paperback probably next month.
I was about to ask.
Yeah, it's a great book.
Yeah.
It's Justin Jordan where he does his best work, which is in that kind of fantastical
mixing comedy, horror, and magic.
Horror. Yeah, it was fantastic. So
really, really. That is one of those moments. Right, bro? Yeah, bro.
yeah, bro. What did you do my Cupid A,
bro?
Eros is
Are you?
Eros is a bro surfer.
Yeah, so a little bit of backstory. Guy finds a magic pill, doesn't know, he gets dosed basically, and now he can see angry cupids that are in charge of love, and fucks up love.
And so Eros shows up to fuck him up, and he's a surfer bro.
And it's based off of a BDSM Jason Momoa. So I wanted to talk about this book, but because I am both friends with the writer and I speak about him a lot, I opted to go in a different direction. It is rare when a writer and an artist fall into sync so well that they just create magic, and that is purely what this book is. It is probably one of my favorite opening sequences I've ever seen. I laughed until I hurt.
I hope Donald DeLay gets a lot more work because of this.
I hope he does, and I hope it's with Justin because, like I said, those two guys, I love a lot of Justin's books. I haven't seen anybody connect as far as at least what I got out of the book, other since maybe Trad Moore. And Trad Moore, because those two just fell and that's not knocking any other artists who work with all fantastic books, but they really did fall together in this book and just play off on each other so well. Go pick up the entire series. It's phenomenal. All right. Well, if we are done with our books of the week, then let's move on to a little section we like to call Getting Ahead of Ourselves, where we talk about some books that are going to be coming out next week, some stuff that are going to be hitting the shelves this Wednesday for New Comic Book Day.
Am I starting?
Yeah, I don't know. Are you starting?
That's the.
Yeah. Can you follow lists?
Read, motherfucker.
There's a lot of great shit coming out next week. I had problems deciding on what, but the first issue of the End of Wayward starts next week. And I just got caught up in it. Craig let me borrow all of his issues. If you didn't know, it's Jim Zub, Steve Cummings, and Dustin Weaver. And they're telling a story about modern-day yokai. And there's been this big war going on with this new upbringing of people with magical powers. And the last story arc that they had, I don't want to necessarily spoil it for Sean, but they went to the main character is half Irish, half Japanese. Yeah. Well, the last story arc, they went to Ireland and found out about all of the magical mythology stuff there, and now they're going back to Japan to finish off this war, and that's what the last story arc is going to be about.
I'm going to get caught up eventually.
Yeah, it's been phenomenal. The art is amazing, and I highly recommend it, and it will probably be the book that I talk about next week.
I have not put the ones back that I loaned Gary if you want to take them and read them.
I know, it's just, as I did enjoy the book, it was a tough decision when I had to cut down on my books. I regret it. I want to buy them. Okay. But thank you.
Okay.
I'm going to go.
I'll keep offering until one day you take
I know you will. I'm going to start scouring them dollar books and back issues eventually.
The hunt's half the fun, man. Yeah. So, and I will help you on that.
So, yeah, they're coming back with issue 26.
I'm not that far back. Cool. I think the last issue I had was 14. So I don't have that many to buy. So
nice.
I'm going to look for them.
All right. Well, I want to get ahead of myself by talking about a little book called Shanghai Red #1. And this book is done by a writer that I really like. I follow him on Twitter. Fun guy. His name's Christopher Selba. It's drawn by a guy named Josh Hickson. I'm just going to read you straight up the solicit for this. Red is one of hundreds shanghaied out of Portland in the late 1800s. He's drugged, kidnapped, and sold to a ship's captain. She wakes up on a boat headed out to sea for years, unable to escape or even reveal who she truly is. Now she's coming back in a boat covered in blood to find her family and track down the men responsible for stealing her life out from under her. Eisner-nominated writer Christopher Selba, that should tell you why you should pick this up, also has written books called High Crimes, Heartthrob, and Welcome Back. Josh Hickson from the Blackwoods and Hassan Otsmani, I'm not even going to try it. Felix from
the deal.
Yeah. Felix from a book called Felix and Macabre bring you the tale of revenge, family, and identity that stretches from the deck of a ship outside of Shanghai all the way back to the bleak streets of the secret tunnels of Portland, Oregon. I'm here for this. I'm on it.
It sounds fantastic.
The book I'm looking forward to next week is the start of a new run on Hit Girl, which will hopefully make me actually like this current run. Me and Craig have brought it up before. Not the worst thing, but definitely not what Millar had done in the past. But it is number 5 with the new team of Jeff Lemire writing and artist Eduardo Risa.
I was going to ask if this is when he kicks off his channel.
Yes, this is the Lemire start. He is, in his true Canadian glory, he has taken that girl to Canada.
True Canadian glory. Can that be a blunt man?
It can be. You can start it.
I
We
feel
can
like
start
it
it.
is. And Ryan Reynolds is the lead singer.
Probably.
So what evil people can we find in what's normally thought of Canada being a nice place? Nice,
Canada?
Canada, I said it. Shout out to the Game Chasers for putting that word in my lexicon. But also cool, again, more Canadian love.
Yeah.
There's a variant cover by Carl Kerschel, who is a Canadian artist. I'm sure, in no small part, I'm sure the Lemire getting some more love for his fellow Canadians.
Oh, for sure.
Looking forward to it, hoping it's going to be a bump up in this new Hit Girl run.
Very
One can
awesome.
only hope.
So my book is written by Dan Slott with Valerio Sheedy and Alexander Lozano on it. It's a Marvel book, and it's Tony Stark, Iron Man number one. And as you guys know, Bendis left that shithole in a mess. And so I'm really interested to see how Dan Slott just wakes Tony Stark up from a dream of which it never happened.
When did we talk about?
You weren't. That was
You
the.
weren't
so
here.
you weren't here.
Yeah, remember?
No, I do. It was funny. I laughed a
Where
lot.
Blade and Casey Jones are teaching people things.
Was that that was where Da Vinci was the problem, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So I really can't wait to see.
Oh, he wasn't the problem. He was the solution.
That was the best part about that story.
There's a lot of good shit coming out next week.
There is.
I had several lined up
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about, but like Hit Girl's honestly the most
Yeah.
excited just because it's my first Lemire book. I'm going to be
Dan
reading.
Slott's run on Amazing Spider-Man.
Yep.
and that's sweet.
ASM 801, Ant-Man, Wasp 2, Gideon Falls.
Yeah.
What, 4? Yeah, so much.
Lots of good stuff next week.
Yeah, and I'm sure in one of those books we'll find a taupe monkey.
Yes.
We
If
can
we
all
don't,
be
I'm going to
hope.
be sad.
Taupe monkeys.
I mean, I
guys.
feel like that's a niche market, and we might have to actually write that story, but
If Joker doesn't attack Catwoman in the new issue next week with a taupe monkey, I'm going to be disappointed.
It's an inside joke that we're not going to let die. Just if you're curious about why we're talking about taupe monkeys, we're not going to tell you because it's an inside joke and we think it's funny. So we're going to do it. All right, well, guys, is that all we have for the week?
man.
We're ready to bring this thing home.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's do it. Hey, guys, we thank you for listening as always. I mean, seriously, we mean it from the bottom of our hearts. The fact that you take your time to listen to us talk about these things that we love, it really means a lot. If you've enjoyed what you've heard, and as always, we really, really hope you have because we want to do a good job for you, do us a favor and go on iTunes and leave us a review and a rating. It lets us know how we're doing. It lets us kind of judge our quality of the show, and it lets other people know that we're delivering something that they might want to listen to as well. If you want to connect with us, you can do so on Twitter and Instagram. We are at SFG Podcast on both of those accounts. You can find us on Facebook and on YouTube at the Southern Fried Geekery Podcast, and you can email us at southernfriedgeekery@gmail.com. Come back for more next week. We're going to be talking about some great books. Actually, I think next week we are going to be having kind of a halftime show for you guys. We're going to be doing our mid-year review on the stuff that we've read this year that we really like. A lot of shows do an end-of-the-year review. We got together and said, hey, by the time December rolls around, we might have forgotten some of the stuff that we really, really care about from January and February. So we're going to kind of jump forward and do a halftime show and judge some of the books as we stand right now. There's going to be no music involved in the halftime show. We don't have that kind of budget, but there it is.
Can't get them copyright claims.
If nothing else,
There may be some wardrobe malfunction.
I will be wearing my nipple star.
Okay.
So just the one. Guys, if nothing else, come back next week, and for now, go forth and read some comics. Woo!